Hi, boys and girls. This is Mrs. Riak. I have a book that I wanted to share with you today. It's a very old book. It's called Harvey's Hideout. The author's name is Russell Hoban, and the pictures are by Lillian Hoban. I got this book when I was 4 years old. My mom subscribed me to a book of the month club. My parents didn't have a lot of money, but they always made sure that I had something good to read at home. And this is one of the books that I got when I was little. And you can tell it's very old because it's falling apart. I have read this book, I don't know how many times, and I read it to my children over and over again. And the reason I chose to read this book today is because it is a great book for brothers and sisters and siblings everywhere. We've spent a lot of time together lately, and we've got a nice long summer stretching in front of us, and getting along isn't always easy. And this book has a great lesson about that. It's actually dedicated by the author for big sisters and little brothers in dens, burrows, and houses everywhere. And right here, you could see Scribble Scrabble, and I think that was my little brother who wrote, "No, touching my book, I don't know." It was a quiet summer afternoon, and Harvey Muskrat was building a raft in the backyard. He was hammering hard when his big sister Mildred stuck her head out of the window. "Harvey, you stop that hammering," said Mildred. "I can't," said Harvey. "I'm building a raft." "Build it someplace else." Try and get more of the book in here. "I'm writing a poem." "I can't," said Harvey. "This is where the hammer and nails and all my planks and logs are. Why don't you go someplace else to write your poem?" "It's my house as much as it is yours," said Mildred. "And it's my backyard as much as it is yours," said Harvey. "You are being selfish and inconsiderate," said Mildred, "and I'm telling." "Oh, go ahead and tell," said Harvey, and he went on hammering until his mother came out on the back porch. "Harvey," said Mother, "this is a terrible racket to make so close to the house. You really ought to do your hammering somewhere else." "So ha ha ha," said Mildred, and she stuck her tongue out at Harvey. Harvey stuck out his tongue back at Mildred. Then he piled all his tools on his planks and his logs, and he swam with them to the other side of the pond to finish his hammering. When the raft was finished, Harvey pulled it back across the pond and went fishing on the raft where Mildred could see him from her window. When Mildred saw Harvey, she called out, "Can I have a ride on your raft?" "No," said Harvey, "because this is not the house, and it is not the backyard, and no part of it is yours. This is my raft, and nobody else's, so ha ha ha." "Oh, this is just what I would expect from a selfish, inconsiderate, stupid, no good little brother like you," said Mildred. "Oh, that is because you are a loudmouth, bossy, mean, and rotten big sister," said Harvey, as Mother came out on the back porch again. "Now, you will both have to stop that right now," said Mother, "and your father is going to hear about it when he comes home." When Father came rowing home in his boat and opened the front door, he heard about it. "Mildred," said Father, "it is true that Harvey is selfish and inconsiderate, but he is not stupid and no good, and you are not allowed to call him that." "What about what he called me?" said Mildred. "Mildred is loudmouth and bossy," said Father to Harvey, "but she is not mean and rotten, and after supper both of you will have sentences to write." So after supper, Harvey had to write, "I will not call Mildred mean and rotten," 500 times. Mildred had to write, "I will not call Harvey stupid and no good," 500 times. "Well," said Mildred to Harvey when they had finished their sentences and were standing in the hallway outside their rooms, "you see how much trouble we got into, and that is what happens when selfish, inconsiderate, stupid, no good little brothers." "Only when they have loudmouth, bossy, mean, and rotten big sisters," said Harvey. Both of them spoke very quietly so that Mother and Father could not hear them. "All right," said Mildred. "You'll be sorry because I know something you don't know." "What?" said Harvey. "There's a big party that I'm going to tomorrow," said Mildred, "and little brothers are not invited." "I don't care," said Harvey, "because I know something you don't know." "What?" said Mildred. "There's a secret club that I belong to that meets in a secret place," said Harvey, "and big sisters are not allowed to be members." "Well, I don't care," said Mildred, "because anything that you are a member of, I would not want to belong to." "Oh, and any party that you go to," said Harvey, "I would not want to be invited to." Then Mildred and Harvey stuck their tongues out at each other, slamming the doors of their rooms quietly, and went to bed. The next day, Mildred tried on several pretty party dresses until she decided which one to wear. Then she folded up the dress very small, wrapped it in plastic sandwich wrap to keep it dry, and swam off across the pond with her party dress in her mouth. Harvey watched her come out on the far bank and go into the woods. He waited until Mildred was out of sight, and then he pulled his raft across the pond, and he went into the woods too. That evening, after supper, Mildred said to Harvey, "That was a wonderful party this afternoon. We really had a good meeting at the secret club," said Harvey. "There were all kinds of refreshments," said Mildred. "Cake and soda and ice cream." "We had a cookout," said Harvey, "with all kinds of good things. We had hot dogs and baked beans and coleslaw and potato chips and root beer and toasted marshmallows afterwards. It was lots of fun." "Well, who was at the secret club meeting?" said Mildred. "Different kids," said Harvey. "Nobody you know." "Who was at the party?" "Nobody you know," said Mildred. "They were all very nice and polite and considerate, and there were no little brothers at all, and there will be another party tomorrow." "There's another secret club meeting tomorrow too," said Harvey, "and we will have a lot of fun again with no big sisters there." The next day Mildred came out of the house with a bundle that she had made up by tying some things in her new yellow slicker. When she was ready to swim across the pond with it, she found Harvey waiting at the dock with his raft. On the raft was a bundle that Harvey had made by wrapping up some things in his poncho. "You can have a ride across the pond with me if you want," said Harvey. "I'm going that way anyhow." "All right," said Mildred, "but no following me to the party and no looking at what is in my bundle." "All right," said Harvey, "and no looking at my stuff and no following me." They pulled the raft across to the other side of the pond, and Mildred started off on the path through the woods. Harvey waited until she was just out of sight, and then he followed her. He was coming around a bend in the path when Mildred jumped out from behind a bush. "I told you no following me," she said. "Well, I'm not following you," said Harvey. "I was just looking for something I lost around here yesterday, but I can look for it later when you're gone." Mildred went off down the path again, and Harvey turned around and slowly went the other way. He went back to the raft and he picked up his poncho bundle. Then he went into the woods and followed a trail to a den he had dug in the ground near the banks of the pond. There was a tunnel to the underground den, and the opening of the tunnel was covered up with brush so nobody could find it. In the floor of the den was a hole lined with stones for building a fire in, and in the ceiling was a hole for letting the smoke out. One of the walls was a calendar from the milkman with a picture of a muskrat baby on it. On another wall was a drawing of an Indian that Harvey had made. Out of the poncho, Harvey took an egg and 2 strips of bacon, a small frying pan that his mother did not use anymore, and an empty milk bottle, and a stack of secondhand comic books he had traded for at school. Harvey piled the comic books in the corner of the den. Then he took the milk bottle down to the pond. He filled it with water and put some wildflowers in it. Harvey stood the milk bottle of flowers on the floor of the den in the place where it looked best under the calendar. Then he fried his egg and bacon, and he had his lunch. Then he dug a getaway tunnel down to the pond so that the secret club would have a secret exit. Then he sat down and sighed and read his old comic books because there was nobody for him to talk to and nobody for him to play with. This doesn't sound like a very big club. His best friend, Howard Woodchuck, was at camp, and his next best friend, the Chipmunk children, had gone away with their parents for the summer. The Beaver children were all too big to be his friends, and they made fun of him because he was no good at cutting down trees, because he's a muskrat. The opossum children always laughed at him because he could not swing from a branch by his tail. The rabbit children were all too fast for him to run around with. His mother told him not to play with the raccoon children because they knocked over garbage cans, and his father had warned him not to get mixed up with the weasels. There was nobody in the secret club but Harvey, and that is why there was nobody in the secret clubhouse but Harvey. Harvey thought about Mildred and the good time she was having at her party. She was probably having cake and ice cream, and the girls would be wearing pretty dresses, and they would be playing games. Harvey wished that little brothers were allowed to go to the party, but he decided that he would never tell that to Mildred, and he would never tell her that he was the only member of the secret club. Harvey thought about it for a long time, and after a while he began to cry a little, and he did not want to read his comic books anymore. I wonder how Harvey's feeling. Harvey must be feeling a little lonely. So he decided to do some more digging in the den to make it a better shape and a little bit bigger. Harvey took down the calendar and the Indian picture, and he moved the milk bottle of flowers, and he began to dig. Harvey dug and carried out dirt until he was tired, and then he sat down to rest. While he was resting, he thought he heard something under the ground close by. Harvey leaned against the wall where he had been digging so that he could listen better. Then he leaned against the wall. When he leaned against part of the wall, it crumbled away, and there was a little hole that Harvey could hear a voice coming out of. The voice said, "Have another cup of tea, Lucinda. Have some cake." Harvey knew who Lucinda was, and he knew whose voice that was. He put his eye to the hole, and he saw that on the other side of the hole was another underground den right next to his. And inside that den was his big sister Mildred and her old doll Lucinda, who had one leg and her tail missing. They were both wearing party dresses, and they were having a tea party. Mildred had spread a cloth on the ground, and she had brought her tea set. She had real vanilla wafers for cake, but she only had pretend tea, and she had no pictures on the walls and no flowers and no comic books. When Mildred looked up and saw Harvey, she was very angry. "Oh, that is sneaking," she said. "That is spying, and that is nasty. And when we get home, I'm telling." "I wasn't sneaking or spying," said Harvey. "I didn't know you had a secret place next to mine. I thought you really went to parties." "Oh, that is just plain stupid of you to think that," said Mildred, "when you know that my best friend Lavinia Otter is away for the summer, and so is my other friend Rachel Squirrel, and the beaver kids are all too big for either of us to play with, and the opossums are not good for anything but swinging by their tails, and the rabbits are too fast to run around with, and the raccoons knock over garbage cans, and we're not allowed to mix up with the weasels. So I would like to know just who you think there is for me to have a party with, Mr. Nasty Little Brother." Then Harvey began to cry, and he rubbed his eye with his paw and got dirt in his eye and cried harder. Then he threw some dirt at Mildred and made her party dress dirty, and she began to cry. "You're so mean," said Harvey, "and I wasn't sneaking and spying, and I was going to give you half my comic books and a calendar for your wall if you wanted one, and I have a cooking hole, and I thought next time we could have a real cookout party, but you are too mean." Mildred stopped crying. "How come?" she said to Harvey. "How come what?" said Harvey. "How come you were going to give me the comic books and the calendar, and you wanted to have a cookout and all that?" said Mildred. "Because I'm lonesome," said Harvey, "and there's nobody but you to play with, and I was going to be nice." "Would you make fun of my poems and my tea parties?" said Mildred. "Would you laugh when I talked to Lucinda?" "No," said Harvey, "I wouldn't. Would you say mean things about the pictures I draw? And would you tell me that I do everything wrong when I cook?" "No," said Mildred, "I wouldn't." "Would you like to have a cup of tea with me and Lucinda?" "All right," said Harvey. "If we make this hole bigger, it can be a doorway between your place and my place, and we can visit back and forth," said Mildred. So Harvey and Mildred made the hole into a doorway, and they ate vanilla wafers, and they drank pretend tea with Lucinda. And the next time they came there, the secret club had 2 members, and Lucinda had 2 friends to talk to at the tea party next door. I think this is a great lesson on being nice to your brother and your sister, and not calling each other mean names, and to be friends, because sometimes that's all we have. We have our brothers and our sisters to have fun with. And boys and girls, I want you to learn a nice little lesson from Harvey's Hideout. This rickety old book has taught many lessons to Mrs. Ruyak and her children, and I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Bye.